Hi, everyone. I'll introduce myself again. I'm Taya Lampkin. I work on open source strategy at Kubeflow. I've worked with open source communities for quite a while, and I was actually at Kubeflow Day LA, which Josh put together, and someone asked me a question, which was, what got you excited to work on Kubeflow? I don't have a machine learning background, and I'm definitely not very good at Kubernetes, or even Go, or even code in general. Um, so what got me excited about working on Kubeflow? I really love to work with open source communities that are trying to solve really crazy technical challenges that require a complex association of individuals to come together, figure out what their expertise is and how they can slot into a larger effort to accomplish something big that they couldn't accomplish individually, whether they were individual contributors or even companies. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about in my talk today. Like, what does this mean in Kubeflow working as a community? You've already seen some of these slides or assets in some of the other talks, but I'm going to approach this from a more philosophical perspective. So here in the Kubeflow community, one of the ways that we organize the work that we do is around three core principles, technical and non-technical. We're open and inclusive. We strive to create a user experience that has a low bar for entry and then a high ceiling for what you can do with the Kubeflow platform. And then, of course, we're Kubernetes native. So we explicitly are not trying to support anything that's not Kubernetes compliant. But my favorite, of course, is this first core principle, being open and inclusive. So as I mentioned, I believe that the machine learning platform that we're looking to build together is just too big of a challenge to do this alone. One of the communities that we draw a lot of inspiration from is obviously Kubernetes, which tackled a large problem and created a really engaged community to do that. And I think they've had a lot of success with that. And we would be really lucky to have a similar success here. What this means for us is that all members of the community are equal. There's an equal opportunity here to share your ideas. We want to hear from everyone at, all different kinds of companies, all different levels of experience with machine learning, with DevOps, and we're looking towards clear paths for the individual contributor to work your way up to be a leader in the community as well, to show how committed we are to having a more open project leadership group. And all ideas and perspectives are welcome. When we share a CUJ or we open a design document and we share that with the community, we really want your feedback. And no question is too stupid. I think the more questions we get from our users, the more we can learn and make a better platform in the end. And we're also really inclusive as far as being committed to fostering a positive and harassment-free community. The way that we hold ourselves to this is we have a code of conduct. We expect everyone to follow this code of conduct, whether it's in our community chat channels or events like this. But another really interesting artifact that our community has created is inclusivity.md file, which Michelle and David and Jeremy put together, which basically puts out our high-level principles for how we collaborate as a community, and how we figure out how to bind all of these different expertises together in a way that makes everyone feel welcome and lets us work together better. So what this means in practice, and I'd really encourage you to check out the inclusivity.md file linked here. We're actually hoping to kind of push this upstream and help other projects also adopt similar principles because we believe so strongly in it. One of the ways that we can kind of go about this is carving out space for contribution and then getting out of the way when people decide to take on that responsibility. We want to make a lot of opportunities for different people to plug into the project and help them and figure out where people want to go. We want people to take ownership of CUJs. A lot of our CUJs actually came from community collaborations, and then we stepped in to help gain an audience around them, get them the feedback they needed to have it eventually evolve into a core part of our development plan overall. We also want to make sure that you as community members have the power to say, no, I don't want to work on that. I want to work on this instead. This is definitely a democracy. I would say it's even a little bit more extreme than a democracy in some ways, but it's, cat herding, but we're trying to figure out a synergy that allows for everyone to have their own way of contributing, and that is exactly what they want to do at any given moment. We also give specific and actionable feedback in a respectful way. Anyway, so moving on, this is not just a technical challenge, as I mentioned. We have a really interesting community puzzle here, which is part of why I'm really excited to work on this project. We have some really gnarly DevOps things that we're trying to solve for in Kubernetes land. We're also trying to build a platform for machine learning that doesn't quite exist yet, and create a user experience that fits into the workflows of data scientists who are using 101 different tools. They're writing in many, many different languages, and we have to figure out a solution that works for them wherever they are. And the intersection of these two specialties is a little bit of a rarity, I think. And I was chatting with some of the community members at Kuplo de LA, and I realized we cannot only have unicorns in our community to be successful. That just won't work because that's not a scalable solution. We need to figure out how to empower machine learning users to meaningfully provide feedback and contribute to our community without having to understand the DevOps challenges under the hood. And I believe that it's also really important that we present our Kubernetes challenges in a way that means that not only people who are machine learning experts can help us solve them. They're really interesting ones. How you solve, the data management problem on Kubernetes, how you solve it at the edge is, not something that they've even figured out yet. And so I'm really excited to get people fired up about contributing, not just because they happen to be in that happy data engineer ML ops space that is too small of a segment to scale our community with. And then we do need our unicorns to help us tie the community together. You are our translators. It's really important that you serve both our contributors and our users and figure out how we can have a shared understanding of what we're trying to accomplish in a way that includes everyone. So this is, I'm running out of time very quickly. I'm just going to skip this because you've basically seen this, but this is why we're open source. It's really important to kind of emphasize the fact that we can't tackle all of those PRs together. And in fact, sorry, I'm actually going to go back to this. This is a really pretty PR graph, but I kind of am looking for more of a J curve here, which means that we have to scale our contributors, but also our reviewers and approvers, all the people that help take all those PRs and issues that come in and make sure that they're slotted to the right work stream, that we have community representatives taking ownership of those work streams and making sure the work gets done in an agile way synchronously. Here's where to find the community. We have GitHub at the center of our community. This is where everything happens, and we're hoping as much as possible to have the GitHub issue or the GitHub PR, even for non-technical concerns in the community, to be the central source of truth. So when you want to interact with us on our mailing list, Kuplo Discuss, Kuplo Slack, the community meeting, working group, or the PM working group, or even the new outreach working group that some of us PMs just started up, we really encourage you to start with GitHub and then link to GitHub wherever you go from there. That helps us most effectively organize our work as a community and means you're going to have the best level of attention for whatever you're trying to bring up to us. Okay. So I think that I'm actually running out of time. I'm going to skip to other ways to help. I think all of you guys here, or not all of you, but many of you are probably people who code. Maybe you've contributed to the Kuplo project with a code contribution. We love that, and it's very, very important, but we also need a lot more help. We need people to do things like evangelism and outreach. We need people to contribute to documentation. We need people to triage our issues, which is not an easy task right now because we haven't published an issue triage workflow. but we will do that very, very soon. That is actually in flight right now. We need test and release infrastructure, and we need people to be testing Kubeflow, submitting issues, submitting friction logs. This is unsung work, but I'm going to figure out with all of you how to make sure that our test and infra contributors are actually the most important people in the room wherever they go, and we're all showering them with praise. I think this is very important. I think I might create an entire t-shirt just for test and infra contributors. So if you're, get in line now, because these will be rare and very valuable collector's items soon, I think. We still have a lot of work to do. So I'm gonna end this talk that was a little disorganized, but hopefully the rest of the event is more organized than this talk. That's where I put my focus anyway, is two really, really interesting slides that came from a Drupal, or sorry, not Drupal, DigitalOcean survey that they did for open source contributors. And they surveyed about 4,000 people, I think, and figured out some interesting themes that I thought I wanted to share with you in this context. So what has prevented a lot of open source contributors from getting more involved? The biggest thing is I don't know where to start. I think that this is a problem we need to solve as a community by adding more documentation, but also helping the new people that show up in our Slack, helping the new people who show up at events, and basically inculcating them into the culture of Kubeflow, the way we do the work that we do. Pointing them to talks like the PM working group talk that we just saw, so they can better understand how they can meaningfully contribute. And what factors does your company consider while making business decisions around when to use open source for a particular project? This was very, very surprising to me that documentation was almost 50%, represented like, so breaking down the survey, 50% of survey respondents said documentation was a major blocker for adopting open source technology. That is very good news because I think that documentation is a challenge we can all achieve together. Bad news because we don't have very good documentation right now. This is something that we need help on, not just documentation for features that don't have documentation right now, but documentation for different cloud providers. We need documentation for GCP, but also for Amazon, also for OpenShift, et cetera, et cetera. And not in these are areas where you are most likely a better expert in some of these use cases than we are, and we rely on you to come to our special github.org website and figure out what's missing, file a PR, or just edit someone's poor documentation that's already there. Editors are very welcome. It's a great way to get started with your first non-code contribution. I very much am over time now, but that is it. You can read all these things that you need to do with us, and I hope that you come up to me in the breaks and at lunch and tell me how you want to get involved, and I will point you in the right direction. So thank you.